Hi, I'm Doug Goldstein. I'm the Director of Profile Investment Services, and I am a cross-border financial advisor, which basically means that I specialize in working with people who live outside the United States who want to have a U.S. brokerage account, or for American citizens who might also have an IRA or some type of retirement account. These days it's a little bit more tricky, but I hope that as a result of going through this presentation, you'll see that there are strategies you have to know and tactics you have to follow, and once you do all that, it's not such a big deal. So let's dive right in. The first thing I want you to realize is that the people who I'm talking to here are normal people who want to invest in stocks and bonds, mutual funds, options, bank deposits, types of people who may need a checkbook or a debit card against their brokerage account, normal people. Now, this could also include if you are the trustee of a trust, or if as a regular person you own a company, or you have some sort of corporation through which you want to invest. All of that's okay. The seminar, of course, is meant for U.S. citizens and non-U.S. citizens alike. So as long as you are a citizen somewhere on the earth, this is probably going to help you out. It's not meant, of course, for bad guys who are looking to do money laundering or to do anything illegal, because we certainly don't help people with that. And you'll see as a result of going through this how we can make sure that the clients that we open accounts for are actually legitimate. Probably the most common type of person I see is someone who's received a letter that looks something like this from his brokerage account. Dear client, we regret to inform you that we can no longer service your account because you don't have a U.S. address. Now, this could be either for an American or a non-American. What happens? It's these big brokerage firms that have huge legal departments, and frankly, they don't want to spend the time or the money or the effort to get to know their clients who live outside the United States. So what do? They simply don't allow those accounts whatsoever. Now, as someone who's a cross-border specialist, I feel this is a mistake, something that they're missing out on, but there are certainly companies, boutique companies, that do help people in this situation. So let's go through the 10 steps you need to open a U.S. brokerage account for someone who is not a U.S. citizen, not a U.S. resident, could be a U.S. citizen, or what we call an NRA, a non-resident alien. That means you're not living in the United States, you're not a resident, and you're an alien, which means you're not a U.S. citizen. You are still very welcome to invest in the U.S. The first thing you have to do is you have to contact a brokerage firm that in fact specializes in working with people outside the United States. You might find some company, you could call enough companies and say, hey, I live in London or in France or in Israel or South Africa. Could you please open an account for me? And maybe someone will, but I think it's a mistake to be the exceptional client. Find a company that specializes just in handling people who live outside the United States. You will absolutely have to clearly identify yourself. When we open accounts for clients, we ask for copies of their passport, driver's license. We're going to look for a utility bill as evidence of their address. We have to make sure in our office that we know who the people are and that we're comfortable that they have properly identify themselves. As soon as someone comes in and says, oh, well, I don't have a passport, or I left it at home, here, can I just give you a letter, or here's a letter from my lawyer or my friend, or a library card. If it's not an official government ID, we won't open the account. Then you have to state what your citizenship is, and the form you're going to sign is either a W-9, which is for U.S. citizens, or a W-8, which is for non-U.S. citizens. And just the one mistake sometimes people make is if you're a U.S. citizen and you live outside the United States, you still have to sign a W-9. You didn't become a W-8. You're a U.S. citizen, that's what you sign. If for some reason you gave up your U.S. citizenship, and we've worked with people like that also, then you would sign a W-8. If you are a non-U.S. citizen, but for some reason you have a social security number, like you once worked in the United States, then you would still sign a W-8. There are two real services that you should get, and by the way, this applies whether you're working with a cross-border financial specialist because you live outside the United States, or if you happen to live in the U.S. or anywhere. There are two main services that you get from investment companies. One of them is advice, and in the case that we're talking about here, we're talking about someone who can specialize in cross-border advice. And in order to make sure that you get proper advice, make sure that the person you're talking to is licensed both in the jurisdiction where you live as well as in the jurisdiction where you're investing. So I'll use myself as an example, but there are lots of people like me. I'm registered in the United States. I have licenses through FINRA. I'm also a certified financial planner. Those are U.S. licenses or documents. And I'm based in Israel, and so I'm also licensed by the Israeli Securities Authority. The second thing you want to look for is someone who has the ability to custody the account. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about someone who holds the money in his own name. That is a big, big mistake. When we open accounts for clients, we custody the account through a major U.S. brokerage firm. That gives you all the benefits and safeties that anyone who has a U.S. brokerage account would have. Also, through a major firm, you have access to world markets. You have currency trading opportunities. You can have different money managers and mutual funds. You can buy stocks and bonds. You have easy access to your money through a checkbook and a Visa or MasterCard, a debit card. All of these services are not provided by the individual advisor, because obviously this is not something he can put together, but he should have a relationship with a major brokerage firm who's able to supply those services. So for you, as the client, it should be a turnkey operation. You go to one office, you get your advice and the clearing and custody. Do you really want to go into an office where the advisor says, listen, I'll tell you what to do, but then you have to go off and do it on your own? Now, some people are do-it-yourselfers, and if that's you, great. But the area that I work in tends to be with people who really want to get a full service. These are a few questions I would suggest you ask before you get started with a new advisor. The first one is, what experience do you have in dealing with cross-border clients? I always tell clients, I'm not a tax attorney, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to write your wills and trusts, I'm an investment advisor. But I do have cross-border experience, and it means that I'm able to help clients ask the right questions to their other professionals, whether they're tax questions or legal questions. And of course, all of the investments that I deal with are constantly things where the questions of what it means to be cross-border come up, like, can I own this mutual fund? Is it better for me to be investing in this currency or that currency? These sort of questions are the questions that cross-border advisors are going to deal with every day. So make sure whoever you're dealing with has the experience. You also want to make sure that he's able to provide not only buying and selling investments, but also proper financial planning, because cross-border people, especially, well, as I deal mostly with U.S. expatriates, people who lived in the United States but then moved away, you want to make sure that they can help you to develop a proper financial plan for someone in your situation. Make sure that whoever it is can set you up with an actual brokerage account and that you don't have to go scurrying around to do this on your own. And finally, make sure, very crucial, the brokerage account, or if you have an IRA account, an individual retirement account, which is a type of pension account, make sure the assets are in your own name and that the broker is not just combining assets in his own name and printing up a statement on his own letterhead. That is obviously very, very suspect and very dangerous. Having your money through a proper custodian, which would be a major brokerage account in America, is the best way to assure that you're not going to have your assets commingled with other clients. I'm always a big fan of meeting the people you talk to, so I encourage face-to-face meetings. I do know that sometimes it's not possible, in which case try to have a Skype relationship where you can easily talk to the advisor, where you can even do it on video. A lot of the communication that people have with their advisors is not just what's said or what's written down, it's what's not said. It's being able to really communicate and hear what the client's concerns are. You know, when I talk to someone about how much risk he can take, there's a lot more than just filling out a checklist. I'm an aggressive or a medium or a conservative investor. I don't really feel those terms mean too much. I think that having a discussion with people about risk is very helpful. So you want to have an open line of communication. Again, the best way to do it is to meet. Skype is a great tool, or certainly being comfortable to call the advisor on the phone. That's also why it's nice to work with someone who's pretty much in a close time zone to you, if not exactly the same time zone as you. Now we're up to the next step. Finally, you have to sign the paperwork and fund the account. You've got to set up the portfolio in your own name and then transfer the money. So transferring the money is normally most easily done in a same name transfer. What do I mean? If your name is Doug Goldstein and you're going to open up a new account, well, transfer the money to another account in the name of Doug Goldstein. If you want to transfer money from John Smith to Doug Goldstein, that usually creates some compliance issues. It is not illegal. You are allowed to transfer money to other people. But once you start doing that, the compliance officers do look more closely at it, and they may ask for documentation or for an explanation about what's going on. And obviously, for larger sums of money, they're going to be more concerned. So if you're going to buy a house and you're going to spend $1 million on a property, you might be asked to demonstrate why you're sending the money to someone else, and they'll ask to see a copy, for example, of the contract, the purchase contract, to make sure that this is legitimate. The compliance officers are assigned with the task of making sure that no one is engaging in money laundering, and they take that job very seriously. Don't try to deposit cash or traveler's checks. These are all the tools of money launderers, and I would say the more serious brokerage firms won't accept money that way. Also, if you deposit money in the account, you can't just turn around and send it out immediately. That looks like someone's trying to move money and do something illegal. If you need to move money because, let's say, for business reasons, make sure you speak to the brokerage firm first and ask them if they'll be okay with that transaction. If not, you may have to work through your current bank. If you have any stock certificates and you live outside the United States, frankly, if you live inside the United States, deposit them in the brokerage account. There's nothing you can do with a stock certificate quickly. If you want to trade a stock, you have to have it deposited and verified before any brokerage firm, I think, would be willing to trade the stock for you. It's different from the old days. So if you remember in the old days, maybe you would go and you'd sell a stock and then you'd bring the certificate into the brokerage firm the next day or 2 or 3 days later. We certainly don't do that. We demand that all of the securities are in the account before we'll trade them, and I don't know any firm that doesn't require that. In any event, it's much more likely that an individual is going to lose his stock certificates if he keeps them in the filing cabinet in his house than if they are safely deposited in an SIPC insured brokerage account. If you have any special needs and requirements, and this does happen, maybe you have a need for power of attorney for someone, or you want your advisor to know that your husband or wife or your ex-husband or ex-wife might be doing something, or there are other unusual financial circumstances, lay it out before you get started. Make sure if you have any questions, or you're going to need to be writing checks or adding money or a special type of trading that you want to do, just talk to the advisor before you open the account to make sure that this is something that they do and that they're comfortable with. Next thing you need to do is to choose the right investments. You have to base them on what are your goals, what's your tolerance for risk. How do you decide? This is not a discussion about financial planning and investment choice, but certainly make sure that whoever you work on is going to help you build a proper plan to make all of these decisions. And finally, monitor the account regularly. You should get monthly statements. You should have access online to see what's going on, not just to see the value of the stocks and bonds, but also to make sure that no one is stolen your checkbook or is using your Visa or MasterCard. It's your responsibility to keep an eye on the account. If you have any specific questions or you'd like to open a U.S. brokerage account or an IRA account in America, please feel free to get in touch with me. You can contact us directly through the website, www.profile-financial.com, and just click on the Contact Us button. And at the same time, if you'd like, these are a couple of very popular books. Both of these became bestsellers. The Expatriate's Guide to Handling Money and Taxes is designed for Americans who live outside the United States. I co-authored that with a tax attorney and other specialists who deal in Americans abroad. And Rich as a King is a great book about financial planning and investing, which I co-authored with world chess champion Susan Polgar. We used the strategies of chess as a way of illuminating the investment concepts. So I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much.